Okay. Starting out, you always want to comb out the client's hair. Well, first off, starting out, you want to get an understanding of what the client is looking for. So I talked to my guy and we gonna do a 1.5. You want to do a 1.5 or a 1 on the top?
Like 1.5.
Okay. 1.5, keep it dark. We're gonna do a low taper. Keep it all natural, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. When coming through, you want to pay attention to the crown area. Pay attention to the growth pattern. And I always like to start out putting my guidelines in. Since we're gonna do a lower taper, we're gonna keep the curve. Want to make sure all this is dark when it's time to line that part up. So we're gonna use reference points to put any guideline. We're gonna start with the top of the ear. We're gonna kind of line it up with the end of the eyebrow, keeping this taper lower for that first guideline. Whatever you do to one side, you always want to do to the other. In the back, you want to make sure you leave enough space to where that fade. You can leave it a nice gradients, but also he has waves, so you don't want to jeopardize the waves by going up too high with that taper in the back. So right here, we want to take notice of any light spots where we can put our first initial guideline, and it kind of was telling us to put it right here. So that's where we're gonna start out with that guideline. You can put your guidelines in with clippers or trimmers. A lot of times I like to do, especially if I'm doing a fade with the clipper, makes it easier to fade out that bottom line. But this is not a sharp trimmer at all, so it won't be hard at all to fade out that line. And so he's doing a 1.5, so we're gonna start one open. And then this clipper opens up pretty wide. So I'm gonna do one open and then I'm gonna show him the top. And if he wants to go lower, we'll go lower. But if he wants to stay at that length, we'll stay at that length. And pay attention to any calyx or different growth patterns. The hair doesn't always grow straight forward and everywhere around the crown or everywhere on the scalp. It goes. Every client has a different growth pattern, so you just want to be mindful of it. This not taking off much, so we probably gonna close it up. I'm gonna just show them. You always want to make sure that's not taking off a whole lot.
Yeah, that's fine.
You like this length right here? Or you want to go a little lower? It didn't really take off much.
Nah, let's go a little bit lower.
Yeah, yes sir. So this taking off a better length right here. And during the consultations, you can always give your client advice on certain cuts that might fit their lifestyle or their head shape or their growth pattern, whatever. 'Cause sometimes a client, they might have a certain expectation, but you want to make sure you giving them a professional analysis as well as a good thorough consultation, because you want to make sure they leave with feeling happy, and you want to make sure that your work looks presentable once they get up out the chair. You always want to be careful and try to make sure you see the pattern and the direction the hair is growing in at this crown area. So if you need to keep combing through it to see, just do whatever works for you. See right here, his hair grows this way. So we're gonna be mindful of that. You always wanna keep the client comfortable. Granted, hair is gonna get on their face, but you need to try to avoid it as much as possible. And always hit them with the like blower or duster once you're done doing something like this. Check out this link, brother.
Yeah, that's fine. I
Good?
like that.
Yes, sir. And you never want to rush this process. You want to make sure the hair is laid down evenly. And honestly, one thing I should have did, when I lowered the guard, I should have showed him again before I went and cut the whole head, because he could have maybe wanted to go lower than this. So that's one thing you always want to be mindful of. This is actually one of my first clients. I've been cutting bro for Almost 2 years now, bro. That's crazy. I caught my boy walking outside of Taco Bell. Get my dog a free cut, man. That's how you gotta build clientele, man. You gotta do whatever it takes. So now we're gonna move into a little more prep work. I always like to spray where I'm gonna line up at down with a nice spritz. You can spray it, you can put it on the neck strip and wipe it, whichever one works best for you. But by the time we do our tapering, the spritz will be locked in and it'll be dry and it'll help us give that crisp finish to that lineup. You don't have to oversaturate it because sometimes it can cake up. You don't want it to cake up super bad. Granted, on some clients you will notice it cakes up more, and some clients it doesn't cake up at all. But you kind of just want to be mindful of it. And I always like to use my 0.5 guard and my 1.5. So these are the two guards I'll be using. And I like to keep it in my hand because I don't want to keep turning around back and forth. That's kind of like a time waster. So starting out, since we're doing a low taper, we're gonna keep this first guideline. We're not gonna go too high. We're gonna go up about a 1/2 inch right here, uniform to the first guideline. So we're gonna go lever all the way open. Not going up too high at all. Being mindful, keeping this area dark. We're gonna set in that first one, we're gonna comb, and that's it. And we're gonna immediately close our clipper all the way. And we're gonna knock out this line, and gradually we're gonna open up halfway and just work our way halfway up that line. So this is fully closed. Just gliding past that line, open it up halfway, and then gliding past that line. And then we can open it up all the way just to clean up whatever we might have hit right there. But we never want to flick past this because we don't want to keep creating new lines for ourselves to fade out. So now we immediately gonna jump to the 1.5 guard, and now all we gonna do is blend down this darkness back to this line right here and just fade that line out with the 0.5 guard. So we just gonna start all the way open to be safe. One rule I like, this kind of like a trick, is since I cut his hair down with the grain with a 1.5 halfway, this is a 1.5 guard, so I can really just close this halfway, or I can even close it depending on how good I'm actually tilting my clipper once I breeze past that guideline. But just to be safe, you can always just start open because you can never add hair back, but you can always take more away. So we're gonna start all the way open. Just breeze past that guideline, but we're going kind of higher. Every time we close up the clipper, we're gonna work our way lower down that blend. Now we're going half. Now we're going close. And you can kind of go with the grain too in some areas, just to make sure it's clean. Open it up if you see anything. Okay. Now we're gonna go half guard. You can see I'm trying to be careful around this area because it's a lighter spot already naturally there. But once we put that lineup on, it will look, you won't even notice it. So I'm gonna just focus on this area. So when I put that half guard on, it already is a half guard. So I like to just start halfway, and I treat it like a 1. Since we went from 1.5 closed, now we're gonna drop down to the 1, which is technically our half guard halfway. Close. And that's pretty much a nice taper that we can come back and detail once it's time to detail. Let me make sure it's focused. But I see a little darkness. I don't have to spend all day right here right now because granted, we're going to come back to it once we put our lineup on, and that'll clean up any darkness that we might see because the lineup is going to bring out the blend more. So we'll be able to catch any darkness or whatever. So just moving on. I'll go kind of like at a normal pace right here, and you can kind of see what it looks like in, real time. Okay. And it's the exact same thing for the back. We don't really switch anything up. Only thing is you can put your guidelines a little bit thicker. But like I said, he has waves, so we don't want to jeopardize any of the waves because he probably wants his waves to be as full as possible all the way around. Okay. Halfway right now. Close just to clean up that bottom. .5 all the way open. .5 close. Sometimes we can skip that half. And there's plenty of techniques to do a taper or whatever because all it is a transition from light to dark. So you can do the taper with no guards. You can do a taper with every single guard that you got. Like you can do a taper with just using your comb. You want to find whatever is most comfortable for you, whatever makes the most sense for you, whatever you find that works on all your clients, not just certain clients, because you don't want to. You want to have a duplicatable system when you're behind the chair. You don't want to be every single client or every single haircut you changing it up and trying different things and seeing what works, because all that does is add wasted time and it's not replicatable. Like if somebody come to you once, they want that haircut. Like they pretty much told you what that first haircut you did was, to their liking. So if you change it up too much, you're probably gonna lose that client. One 1.5 just to clean up the darkness. And you can see me pulling the skin to stretch the skin to make that fading area. We can stretch it out so our clipper can easily glide past the area. Sometimes when the skin will move. So when you stretch it, it'll be still more. You can execute better. And go through one more time. And you can go through your system just repeating your steps to achieve like that look you're looking for. But this is not trying to make it perfect the first way through. Because like I said, once you put the line up on there, then you got your time to go back and refine it and make the cut really pop the way you want it to. Okay. So that's the taper. Now, before we get into our lineup process, something I like to do, depending like on the clients, like if they have waves or a low cut, this is like a foam that will lay it down. All you gotta do is just apply some. You don't even gotta brush it or nothing. All you gotta do is just, spread it through the hair. And it also gives it a nice shine too. Just lock that in with the blow dryer briefly. You can use a cool setting. So the main parts that I'm worried about drying mainly is where I'm gonna line up at. This will naturally air dry by itself. On one last prep work before we line it up, I just like to spray some, got to be a light little spray because we already put the spritz, but this just helps lock in that lineup even more. And we just do it on the front. So by the time we come back to it, because we're gonna line up the back first. It'll already be locked in as well. So when doing the back lineup, you want to pay attention to where, well, anywhere on the head, you want to pay attention to where that line naturally wants to be at. And you want to use reference points. So right here, I can see the line naturally wants to be placed right about here. And once we put this first reference, we can kind of just gradually work our way around that earlobe, and you can see his natural hair, his natural lineup is right about here at the top. So when we lining it up, all we really got to do is connect the dots. We don't want to never overplay our part trying to give a client something maybe you think it's aesthetically looking or whatever, because this is what helps the lineup last the longest. Using our corners around the curve. Get down a little bit, bro. And you just want to comb through that. Go back through one more time. And just take a note of, when we spin them around, take a note of anywhere we might need to do some detail work at. So same thing on this side. That lineup naturally wants to be about right here. And we're gonna pay attention to the curvature around the ear. It's not too high at all. You can clean up while you're right here. Get any free hairs overhanging that lineup. Okay. And so when we look back at this back taper, we can see kind of any areas that are dark, like when it's time to come back to it, that we can just clean up. And really, when you work your system, when you got a good system, it won't be too much to come back and clean up. It's some darkness in here, not much though. So we don't have to spend all day when we go back to detail it. We won't be spending all day doing that. So for the front line, I always like to start wherever I see I can put the vertical bars at. Because once you put the vertical bars, you will be able to see everything else a lot better, where you want to put that front line at, where you can put the curves at. You can just balance everything. And you want to use your mirror a lot for this part. So I'm gonna change up the angle. Okay. And I kind of notice this side sticks out a little bit more to me, so that's where I'm gonna start at. You never want to go too high on this part because you might go too high thinking that that's naturally where the vertical bar needs to be placed, and then you will jeopardize this front line up because you didn't took it too high to where you gotta bring this front line up higher than it needs to go. So you just want to do a light tap to give you a good reference and a good visual, and that's all you need to do. So now, since we placed that one, notice we also put it at a slight angle, because when you put that line just directly straight, when the client is looking in the mirror or when somebody's looking straight at them, it will be kind of like angled in, kind of actually. So because the head is a sphere, you got to use angles to get that actual straight look, because it's technically never going to be straight because the head isn't, you can't place a straight line on a sphere. So you want it to look straight and symmetrical. So we just put a nice little angle, and we're going to take note of that angle. We're not just doing the angle and not noticing how much we're angling it. We're going to balance it on both sides using either. It's a few different ways you can match it up on both sides. So one way would be just to look at the eyebrow or the eyeball. I like to look at the eyeball, so I see it falls directly into that corner of the eye line, if you know what I mean. These are not technical references, but this is like how I like to look at it. It's like one click. I call clicks like little spaces. It's like one click off that corner of the eye line. Now, some people, their line can be all the way out here, and you just want to use your best reference point, whether you got to use the eye socket, whether you got to use the eyebrow or the eyelid. You want to make sure whatever you take a note of, you're doing the same thing on the other side. And also, the angle you look at it from too, you want to make sure you look at it from that same angle on the other side. So I'm centered with this vertical bar. The center of my body is lined up directly facing it. And so I can place the comb down facing directly towards me. And then I'm looking. So where does it line up at? It's one click away from that corner pocket of the eyelid. So when I turn them to the other side, I'm gonna do the exact same thing. I'm gonna kind of face it directly towards me. I'm gonna look what's one click from the corner of that eyelid. Okay, not overplaying our part, giving a nice reference. So now we can see better, because granted, look, it's different growth patterns right here going on, and it's kind of like a widow a little bit. And if we just start digging in, we might take that line farther back than it really needs to be placed at. So since we put these vertical bars in there, now you can kind of see where you need to go at with this line. And I see naturally, I can connect it right here. It's a good area to start working my way in both directions. So I'm gonna try to get a good angle of that. And you wanna check your mirror, make sure your vertical bars is lined up how you would like it to. And I think that's pretty good. I think I can tap this one just a little bit. Not much at all. Okay. So once you got that lined up, you want to see what corner is naturally slightly higher. Because sometimes, it's not on every client, but sometimes a corner is naturally higher. So I'm gonna check that. And his looks pretty uniform. So I'm just gonna walk my way both ways. Starting from the center, I'm gonna just walk my way towards each corner, making sure everything is balanced. And you always want to just, you can use your mirror like this. You don't have to be in a rush with this lineup process. But one thing to take note of is how you touch the client's scalp when you holding them still or just using the balance, because if I'm pulling the skin too much, it can alter the lineup. Or if I'm, just grabbing too much, or if the client is raising their eyebrows, all these things can. So you want to make sure the client is relaxed. You want to make sure when you using balance, you're not pulling the skin, or you just simply gently have your hand up there just for balance. So I'm walking in both directions, letting that lineup just naturally come. Okay. One trick, sometimes it's hard to get those corners sharp. Here's since a nice thing when we put those vertical bars in, once you meet it, a lot of times it will give you a nice sharp corner. But sometimes if it's not sharp, all you gotta do is angle your trimmer and just tap that corner. You don't wanna go too far because you don't wanna make it overly, like you don't wanna go too high up in there, but you just wanna tap and get those free hairs that's just in that corner that's not giving that sharpness like you want it to. So we're gonna just walk it back on the other side, checking our mirror, make sure it's still balanced. Okay. Okay. So now we're gonna use this top line as reference for our curves for the C cups. Because when you think about it, you want your lineup to look uniform. One thing I used to do myself was I used to over curve this C cup, trying to make it look a certain way that I thought was cool or something. When sometimes the haircut wouldn't look all the way uniform. So you just wanna see which corner or which C cup is higher and go that one first and just reference the other side. You notice we're doing a lot of referencing because you always want to make sure the haircut is balanced. And when you use a good foundation, see, look, I'm just going off the lineup, going to the C cup, and I'm just going at the lowest point I can naturally put it and keeping it full as possible. Going to the bottom, you can kind of tell where that hair starts to grow out in here. You just want to kind of put a little line for indication, and you just want to meet those two in the middle. using your corners. And you never want to overplay your part. You just want to naturally go with the natural growth patterns and the natural lines. This will make your job much easier. And it'll make the clients happy because they'll line up lasting a good amount. Okay, so now we can just balance this to the other side. So we take our comb, we take a note of where it ends at. It's a little longer, okay. So we got our measurement. Now all we gotta do, take it to the other side, place it down, and work off the lineup like we did the same way. So place it. And we getting those nice crispy lines from the prep work that we did. I do use a white pencil sometimes to give it a good pop, but this is no pencil. This is just from prepping the client's skin. And you might notice some people don't change trimmers for all these processes. I changed trimmers from the back lineup to the front lineup because this trimmer is more sharp than the other trimmer I use. And I don't necessarily feel like you always need to use a super sharp trimmer for this back neckline, because also this is a sensitive area too right here. Especially you might see sometimes people getting those black lines right there is because those trimmers are sharp and it's very hot a lot of the times. So since we put both our C cups in there, now we just checking, making sure everything is balanced the way we want it to be before we just go through, hit it with a razor, and then we're gonna detail it. And that's basically how you do your tapers. And like I said, the detailing can take as long as you want it to. It could be as fast as you want it to, because this is already a pretty clean cut. The detail work is what's gonna set you apart. Like how well you can see dark spots, or any inconsistencies within your fades. So right here, I can see a little bit of darkness up in this area. I told you on the back taper, I see some darkness like in these little spots. And here I can just go through a little bit of corner work. It's not much at all. Before we lead them back and hit them with the razor, we can just look at it in the mirror one more time, make sure it's balanced, make sure everything looking good. I can see I can tap just right here, just a little bit, not much at all. And don't be scared, like I'ma always be transparent. Like don't be nervous to turn your client and look in the mirror because you might think it's awkward or whatever. I would rather feel a little awkward and give them a good haircut than feel uncomfortable and not do it at all. And you might not get it as balanced as you would want to. And also just look straight at the hairline. You don't have to look at them, bro. Like when you looking in the mirror, look straight at their hairline. Don't matter what they looking at. And then not hit the spot you need to look at. You touch your head back, bro.
What?
Might touch your head back. Yeah, when you're applying the razor, all you gotta do is stretch the skin and glide like at a nice 30-degree angle. Again, not overplaying it because you don't want to irritate somebody's skin. But this just adds a nice pop, and it actually adds like a day or two to the crispness of the lining, because it gets those stubble hairs that the clipper can't necessarily get. And if you don't feel comfortable using a razor, take some time and just practice gliding it on yourself, like on your leg with no razor blade in there, and then try it with a razor blade and work on your angle, work on pulling the skin. Good, brother. Good, brother. And then with that razor, we can see any overhanging hairs that we need to tap. So we're just gonna brush them and tap those. All right. Now we just detail. We good, man. So like I said, I didn't really overcomplicate anything. I like to keep my system super simple. I like to make it duplicatable for anybody that sits in my chair. I can use a 0.5 guard and a half guard and a 1.5 guard on any client. I can use these clippers. I can use these trimmers on any client that gets in my chair. Not too much. A little bit of darkness. Tap that. Down, brother. Just opening the clipper up. Corner it. And just breeze past it. You're not trying to put in no new lines. You're not trying to overplay your part. Just corner it and just breeze past it. Now, if you feel like it might be You might need to put a guard on there, then put a guard on there. Like, it's no wrong way to go about getting a nice fade. And like I said, you can't never add hair, but you can always take some more away. Yeah, that's a pretty nice blend right there. This is a clean, just all natural, low taper. Nice and clean right there, man. So be sure to leave any questions y'all got in the comments if you need me to go more in depth on any part of like these type of tutorials. Let me know. This is the first time I ever recorded a tutorial like this, so let me know how y'all think it went. And if y'all want to see any more haircuts that's like more in depth just like this and a longer form video, I'll be open to do them. So appreciate y'all.